Hello. So obviously you all know I am out of town, but I did want to leave a coaching session with you all so that you can have access to information, have access to how I think and how I supervise, so that you can still be moving accordingly and have everything you need regardless of whether I'm here or not. And you can always refer back to this document, to this link, and this information. And I'll also make sure you have all of this as well. So I've been sending a bunch of dissertation emails, and what I mean by dissertations is just big giant emails. And maybe to some people, it's over explaining, and to others, not so much. What I'm trying to do is be able to communicate with veterans and new site coordinators and make sure there's no drop off in information as I communicate with both parties. But today I'm going to do things a little differently and put all my coaching advice and put all my coaching information in this video. So I'll edit and I'll chop it up so that you can skip and jump around and go to the parts that you think are most necessary to you. And if you miss something or you have a question about something, you can always jump back around to other parts as well. First and foremost, I wanted to talk about our unique model. Obviously, I'm driving home this point, and I'm going to drive home this point as many times as possible. You'll probably get annoyed with me even talking about it. But I think that truly understanding your job is having the ability to recite what your job is and how you do it. So I want you all to become great brand ambassadors by being able to quickly and in a straightforward way explain what we do and how we do it. So obviously, Communities in Schools' mission is to surround students with the community of supports, empowering them to stay in school and achieve in life. Um, but what we want to do is be able to explain exactly what we do. We operate under a national nonprofit, and we have affiliates all over the country. And affiliates are similar to your Chick-fil-A's and KFC's. Whoever originally created Chick-fil-A and KFC had their own restaurant. Someone came to them and said, "This is amazing. We need to take this all over the place." But when you take something all over the place, you don't want everyone to taste chicken sandwiches or taste your products and they taste differently. So you want that same product to be the same no matter what locality you go to. And it's the same with Communities in Schools. Regardless of what city and what locality or what affiliate you're at, the model should be the same. The execution of the model should be the same. The tiered supports that are provided to both the school and the students should be the same. And one other thing. Oh, relationships being at the center of all of those things should be the same. So no matter where you are executing the model at, I should be able to see the model executed exactly how it's supposed to. I should be able to see relationships be at the center of that model, and I should be able to see tiered supports being provided, the integrated tiered supports being provided to students in the school. All right, so when we talk about the school, in terms of the school, what we do is we come in and we create a needs assessment, which we do at the beginning of May. We start to create surveys and send out surveys to parents, students, staff, admin, to get an idea what the biggest priorities are going into the next year. Then in August, between June and August, we assess those surveys. We assess the VDOE school quality report uh, data on how the school's doing. And then we also look at the school. We look at the school's culture. We look at the services the school already has. We look at the basic needs that the school already has access inside of the school and in the community, and assess where the gaps are using all of this information. And that encompasses our needs assessment. So our needs assessment essentially looks at the entire school, the system, the culture, the programs, the basic needs, the opinions of staff members, the opinions of students and parents, and assess what do they need before I actually walk into this building and start solving the problem. The support plan is the next step. In the support plan for the school, We are saying we identified the prioritized needs and the biggest barriers facing the school after talking to, well, after reviewing the surveys, after looking at the data, um, after looking at where there are gaps in service. And now we're creating our support plan to see what we can prioritize and how we can tackle that school's problems. And that's what our support plan is. Typically, you would meet with the support team to create the support plan, but with the crazy and chaoticness of the school, we create the support plan and we just review it with our principal and review it with our support team. Um, After we've created that plan, now we want to execute our plan. So you would either identify community partners who will come in and carry out the supports towards the school's biggest barrier or issue, or you would create events or programs or partner with other people to create supports that help to address or tackle whatever the school's biggest barrier is. And that's our integrated supports. In terms of the school, they are tiered one supports that we use to reach 75% of the school's population by the end of the school year, utilizing at least 4 tier 1 events that's supposed to um, support whatever the school's biggest barrier is. So, an example of that in the needs assessment, we identified chronic absenteeism as the biggest problem facing the school. In our support plan, we create supports and create activities and different things to address chronic absenteeism. We meet with some community partners. We identify how we can, we're at elementary school. We meet with community partners and we realize that parents are the biggest reason why kids are chronically absent because they have to pick these kids up and bring them to school. So we create parent engagement events as our tier 1s where the kid comes out to school too. We got some activities for the kids and we got some activities for the parents, and we slip in some information related to um, chronic absenteeism, or we create some games that make kids excited about coming to school, or incentivize kids and make sure we let the parents know what's going on so that they can incentivize making sure their kids get to school. That would be the integrated student supports. So by the end of the quarter, we want, oh, let me rewind that back. After we provide a support, we would like to go to teachers, staff, parents, whomever, and kind of see how things went. We want to look at the data to see if chronic absenteeism is decreasing at all based on our supports, our events, and our interventions. And then we want to report out how we're doing in that area um, for our school progress monitoring. So we're going to report out the progress of the school and see whether or not they're progressing, declining, or making no progress. And based on that information, we either maintain our supports if they're progressing, or if they're declining or making no progress, we want to adjust or change up our supports to try to find more effective supports. We also kind of want to do a check-in for the school, which is what I was alluding to earlier. When we check in with the parents, admin, students, staff to see how the event went, we're kind of doing a check-in to see whether or not things are working out properly. And then we're going to also utilize the data with the check-in to ensure um, the data is getting better. So after we do progress monitoring and then we adjust if the goal is declining or making no progress, then on a quarterly basis, we also want to evaluate things, and that's where we would adjust the supports. But at the end of the year, we want to see whether or not our implementation of the model was executed in a good way, and we want to see if we achieved our goal. So the evaluation process is that determination as to what to do with the supports. If the school is progressing in their goal, we want to maintain that progressing status, and whatever we're doing that's working, we want to maintain that support. So we want to maintain that tiered 1 support. If it wasn't working, we want to talk to parents, staff, students, admin, or even check to see the information and the activities that we're using at these events, and check to see that they're effective in getting the attention and getting the results that we want. That's the evaluation stage after adjusting the supports. And if we do all these things, we hope to reach proven success for the school. In terms of the model for the students, again, we're creating a needs assessment for each individual student on our caseload. So we want to assess that student's risk factors, their attributes, their characteristics related to their situation to see what things are going on in their home or community that could be having an impact on them and being the biggest barrier facing the kid. We want to create a support plan to actually address and attack the problem or the biggest barrier facing that kid in attendance, behavior, or course performance. Once we create the supports, we want to deliver those supports to that kid. So we want to give that integrated student support to that kid. Let's say a kid is failing math. We want to give that kid math tutoring support, whether it's from us or community partner, and then do check-ins periodically with the kid once a month throughout the quarter to see how the kid's doing. Is your math grade getting better? Review the grades with this kid and kind of explain to them what they could do to have that grade improve by the end of the year. So we're not only checking in with the kid, we're checking in with the goal to see whether or not the goal is working in a successful direction or working in a unsuccessful direction. Um, then we want to monitor and adjust. So we want to look at where they are currently and what they should be at by the end of the quarter. And then we want to adjust the supports that we're giving them to make sure and ensure they can reach their goal. If we got to the progress report section, the progress report time frame within the quarter, so the halfway mark of the quarter, and the kid wasn't doing well, maybe we need to adjust the supports. Maybe we need to find them a different tutoring. Maybe we need to get them to stay back at school with their teacher. But whatever we need to do, we need to adjust so that we can um, get them to where they need to be by the end of the quarter. And then we want to evaluate, are we executing the model as it should be executed for this particular kid? Are we adjusting the supports as we should be adjusting the supports for this kid? And so on and so forth. And that's pretty much that's how we carry out. So what sections are we on right now? So for the school, we did our needs assessment and support plan, and we should have gotten that support plan signed by a principal already. So in terms of the school, we should be meeting with community partners if we have community partners for the school, and planning our first tier one if we haven't already. And if we have planned our tier one or executed our tier one, we should be going back to staff or the principal or our support team and getting feedback on how that tier one went. And then start planning for our next tier one and then adjust supports to try to make sure we can be more effective and more efficient as we try to use our tier ones to mitigate whatever the school barrier or issue they're facing is. So right now you should be in stage three for your school. In terms of the students, right now we're enrolling students. So we're still in step one of the model for the students. We are collecting consent forms and getting baseline information for the kids, doing needs assessment, and then creating support plans. So we should be in phase one or two for those students on our caseload. And really, we should also be creating our case file. I don't want you all to enter any more kids or enter any more consent forms until you have created your case files for the kids who are already in the system. And what I mean by that is if the kid is in the system, but you don't have a case file for them, and that case file does not have their support plan in it, it does not have their active consent form in it, it does not have their baseline information, we should not be in step two or step three for a kid until we have all those things created. And the reason I say that is we're trying to be professionalism. Well, we're trying to be professionals and practice professionalism. If you were a social worker, would you be working with a student without having that baseline information, that intake process worked out already? If you were a counselor, would you start working with a kid without having the intake process completed, having that kid's history, having that kid's information available? If you're a probation officer, would you be working with this person on probation without knowing their criminal history, without seeing that they were approved for probation, without seeing that the baseline or intake information was completed? This is the same process that we have to take with our students. I want you all, as soon as you get a consent form, to create a case file for this kid that has their support plan in it, their schedule so you can locate the kid, their active consent form, and then baseline information. And this all shows me that you went through the process of step one and step two. You have the information. You created you got consent from a parent to work with this kid. You grabbed their baseline information, looked at last year's attendance, behavior, and course performance, and after looking at all three areas, you decided which area has the biggest barrier, and then you started working in that area and created a support plan for it. No kid on your caseload should be in step three, where you're actually providing supports to them, if you have not created a needs assessment for this kid, got their baseline information, and got an active consent form. And when I go through and start auditing these people, I'm going to ask you, how did you get to stage three or step three in our CIS model without having step one and step two finished? And that's what I want to see. And I don't want you adding any more kids until you all have gotten through one, two, and three, and your digital case file reflects that much. All right, and that's my spiel on that. So progress reports come out soon for Portsmouth and Norfolk. For Portsmouth, September 30th is your progress report deadline date. Um, for Norfolk, it was September 19th, and for Chesapeake, it's October 4th. Why do I bring up progress reports? We're not at the end of the quarter, you might be asking yourself. I think the progress reports or this interim report time frame is a good time to make projections and predictions about what your kid is going to look like by the end of the quarter. So let's say I had a kid with an attendance issue, and I've been working with them for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the first quarter. When the progress reports come out, I see that this kid had 4 days and they can't get past 5 days. So getting that information during the progress report or interim report time frame allows me to see in real time what this student is projected or predicted to be declining or making no progress. And then I can shift and adjust my supports for this kid on the fly and start working to make sure that they don't miss any more days as we get to the end of the quarter. If you're using that process and practice with each one of your kids, then there's absolutely no reason why any of your kids should decline or make no progress positive. Oh, well, Nick made no progress. My apologies. Obviously, you might have a kid or two slip through the cracks, but a good portion of your kids should be progressing because you have that halfway point of the quarter to really see where they're at and adjust your supports and adjust your conversations and adjust things to make sure that kid stays on track or gets on track if they're not already on track. So what I would say to do is reach out to your data specialist, reach out to your admin, reach out to your support team, anybody who gets you data in the building, unless you have Power School or Synergy or something like that, and get the grades for all of your caseload kids, get the attendance for all of your caseload kids, get the behavior reports for all of your kids so you can see where they're at the halfway mark and ensure that they're progressing by the end of the quarter. Once again, Portsmouth's report cards, sorry, Portsmouth's interim report and progress reports come out September 30th. So you need to be requesting that information now so that you can have access to any information that you need. And you should do the same thing with your school goals. At that halfway mark, you really need to be reaching out to your data specialist to try to figure out what your school is looking like. If you're doing chronic absenteeism, what are they at looking like at the first half of the quarter? If it's suspensions, how many suspensions have been divvied out in the midway point of the first quarter? If it's graduation rate, that might be a little harder, but maybe getting a list of how many of your seniors in the school is failing. We can get access to all this information and kind of have an understanding of where we are in terms of our goals to ensure that these goals don't decline or make no progress. Also, as we're talking about model implementation, I want to, I guess, talk to you about how we do the model. Um, so for me, a lot of people look at step four. Remember, it's 6 steps. You got needs assessment, planning, integrated student supports, monitoring and adjustment, evaluation, and proven success. But a lot of people look at monitor and adjustment phase as if it's only progress monitoring. Um, Progress monitoring is when we take the data and see where our kid is at in terms of their goal by the end of the quarter. So yes, we do that at the end of the quarter, but you don't have to only do that at the end of the quarter. You can be monitoring their progress the entire time, and I would actually influence you to and encourage you to monitor their progress the whole time. If you can get access to real time data where you see what your kid is doing and where they're at, definitely want to utilize that. Also, the way I do things as a site coordinator is a little differently. I don't do check ins at the beginning of the month. I actually use my check ins to see how my delivery of supports is going. So, to explain that a little better, at the beginning of the year, my process would be find those kids, identify kids who actually need to be on CIS's case managed caseload, put those kids on our caseload. The first couple of weeks of the first quarter, I would be intentionally doing rapport building with those kids and building a relationship with them. Um, After the progress report comes out, I would see where those kids are in real time with the goals I created. And then the last half of the quarter, I would provide intentional supports to those kids. And then I would do check ins to check to see if the supports are effectively working and to see how the kid is doing in terms of their goals. Um, so the first month, my check ins are really adding this kid to the caseload, making sure they understand what CIS is, getting their baseline information, and having a conversation about what goals I'm going to be following. In October, um, the first 2 weeks of October would be providing supports to those kids in the areas that they need help in, and then doing a check in to see if the supports are helping them out. An example, if a kid had uh, a problem with math. So I brought them on the caseload because they're having issues with math. I do some rapport with building with them the first couple of weeks because I want to build a strong relationship with the kid. I want to understand this kid. I want to understand what motivates this kid. I want to understand what makes this kid work and what this kid's personality is like. Then I want to start providing supports that intentionally, um, after understanding your personality, understanding your barriers, and understanding your issues, and understanding what you respond to, create supports that are actually going to help to address your issues in math. And then I use my check ins to check in with you after delivering the support to you to see if the supports are working by using my check in kind of as if it was an indirect survey. I want to remind you what the goal is. I want to remind you where you are in terms of getting to the goal. I want to see what obstacles are standing in your way of getting to the goal, and I want to see what opportunities you have in order to reach your goal. And then I want to summarize that, and then um, give you the next set of objectives of what to do in the next week or the next couple of weeks in order to make sure you reach your goal. So I said all that because I think um, the same processes we do for the school wide goals, we can do for the case managed kids goals. For a school goal, you obviously can't do check ins with a person. But what I could do is go to the ABC meetings and my support team meetings and talk to my support team about what I plan to do to tackle the school's biggest barrier, biggest problem. Then we create tier ones with community partners, execute that tier one with the community partners, and then do a check in with the school. So I'm checking in with the admin staff, I'm checking in with my support team, I'm checking in with my students, I'm checking in with parents if it's a parent engagement event to see how those things working and how I can make it better. And then I'm also looking at the data to see if the school is improving towards their goal, and that's my check-in after I deliver supports. So in summary, I want to get us to the point where we're getting information to see what our school most wants and what our students most are receptive to, which is rapport building, delivering the support to the area of need, and using the check-in as a survey to figure out how our students are doing, whether or not they're going to meet their goal, and whether or not there are some new obstacles or barriers keeping them from their goal, and what can they do to reach their goal. A good way to do check-ins is something I like to call the G.R.O.W Model. And let me pull that page up really quickly. Uh, all right, I'll share this next page. Let's just get a quick image. Just waiting for it to load. All right, so the G.R.O.W model is essentially what I just explained and how you do check-ins with your kids. So G.R.O.W is an acronym for how we coach students or how we can check on and do a quality assurance check for our data as it relates to school-wide goals. Um, if we were checking to see what's going on with the school, we want to remind ourselves what the goal is for the school. We want to see where the school is in reality. So the school is trying to increase parent engagement. In reality, school has never tried to do anything with parent engagement. So they don't have any parents right now. What's our obstacles? Our obstacles, O is options or obstacles. Our obstacles is that the school has never really had a consistent group of parents that are engaged on a regular basis. So we don't have anything to fall back on. We don't have a list. We don't have any of that information. What are our options to be successful in this? Our options are maybe we need to do some kind of celebratory event for the kids, some kind of event where we know the parents are going to come to, and use that as a recruiting method for getting what we need, getting the parent names and numbers so we can do parent engagement events. And then we'll way forward. All right, so what's our way forward? What will we need to do in the steps? And what needs to be our next steps in order to reach our goal? And that's how you do that with the school. That's how we do a check-in with the school to see how things are going. We can do an indirect survey, this same format with parents, teachers, admin, support team, or whoever to see how the school's doing, and then look at data to see if the school's close to reaching their goal or not. And then if not, we can adjust supports and provide a new tier one support, and then do this process again to see how things are going. But that was just an explanation of how that works. Now, for students, if I was to go up to one of my high school students at Booker T. Washington High School, I would ask them if they remember what their goal is. Yes, my goal is I wanted to get my GPA up from a 1.5 to a 2.0 by the end of the quarter. Okay, well, where are we in reality? Okay, well, in reality, right now, I still have a 1.5 and it's not budging right now. I can't seem to get it where I need to get it. All right, so what's our obstacles and what's our options? Obstacles is I'm picking up my sister every day from school, so I can't really stay back with my teacher. What's our options? I could go pick up my sister, drop her off at school, and then come back because the teacher stays back for 2 hours. And it's not going to take me 2 hours to drop my sister off and come back. So maybe for the first 20 minutes after school, I'll drop my sister off and come back to the school, and then I can stay back with the teacher. So what's our way forward? What are we doing? What's our next steps moving forward to ensure that we meet this goal? I'm going to start dropping my sister off at home every Tuesdays and Thursdays when they stay back for math or stay back for whatever subject I'm struggling with. And I'm going to make sure that I come back to the school and do what I need to do. And really, you could have did a check-in just that quick. Yes, you can still check in to see how they're doing and how life's treating them and some of what else they need to talk about. But in terms of being efficient in getting them to realize what the goal is, what the reality of where we are in terms of trying to reach our goal, what our options and obstacles are, and what's our way forward, that is a quick and easy way to get all of that information in a check-in really quickly. All right, and we're going to move on now to some system related things. All right, so I just wanted to go over a few things just to ensure um, people knew how to do certain things on system and to make sure you got everything that you needed. So the first thing I want to do is go over site coordination. So to get to site coordination, you hit my caseworthy, and then you go to site coordination. So what is site coordination? Site coordination is how we enter in our data related to our meetings with our principals, our meetings with our support team, our meetings with our affiliate or supervisor. So how do we do this? First and foremost, we want to go to add new site coordinator entry, which is the top right hand of your um, page. After hitting my caseworthy and site coordination, you're going to hit add new site coordinator entry. Once we get here, we're going to put what school we're supporting or servicing. We're going to put how many hours this meeting took place. We're going to put some notes about what happened in the meeting and what conclusions were came to in the meeting. But the biggest thing is the type of site coordination is reporting requirement. Once you hit reporting requirement, down here where it says reporting team, you have the options to pick organization, which is your affiliate, school leadership, which is your principal, or school support team, or you can pick all three. So you will pick the designated group that you're talking to or had a meeting with, and then add them, make sure your notes are there, and then you're done. So you have to have 4 meetings with your affiliate, 4 meetings with your principals, and 4 meetings with your support team by the end of the year. You should be doing this more often, and you can do this as often as necessary. But in terms of accreditation standard, and what I told you about accreditation standard earlier is if I'm KFC, I got to make sure all of my KFCs have 7 herbs and spices. If I'm Chick-fil-A, all of my Chick-fil-A sandwiches need to taste the same. So in terms of communities and schools of Hampton Roads, accreditation for us looks like making sure every affiliate under the umbrella of communities and schools national has at least 4 interactions with their affiliate, 4 interactions with their principals, 4 interactions with their support team by the end of the year. And that's site coordination. You would just hit save, and then you would be done with that. If you ever needed to check to see if you did a site coordination entry and you just don't remember, you would go to your school here, and then you don't have to select the support type. You can just hit search, and it'll show you every site coordination entry that you have. So if I ever send you a report and it says that you're missing site coordinator entries, you would come to my caseworthy, site coordination, and then type in your school and hit the search, and it'll show every site coordination entry that was done this year if you provided one. If you didn't provide one, it's not going to be there. And it's not going to show up on the accreditation report if you don't select reporting requirement for the type of site coordination. All right, we're going to go on to the next thing. And the next thing is batch 2 and 3, batch 1, 2, and 3 supports. So again, if we were trying to get to this as soon as the site logged in, we're going to hit my caseworthy, and it's going to be in this little toolbox off to the side. So if you wanted to do tier 1 entries, remember tier 1 are school-wide events that's supposed to mitigate or remove the biggest barrier facing the school, and we have to reach 75% of the school's population by the end of the year. So let's say we did parent engagement and we're tackling parent engagement. We will go to my caseworthy, tier 1 supports, and add new. When we get to that page, we have to put what school the support was provided, when was the support provided, after school, before school, during school, summer. So we're going to put our school, I'm going to put Aberdeen for now. When was the support provided, after school, before school, during school? Is this a group or an individual? And obviously, in order to be a tier 1, which reaches non-case managed students within the student body, the same student body with to reach 75% of our student population by the end of the year, it's got to be group. We said we were doing parent engagement. So I would go down to family engagement and put family engagement as my support. And then whatever we did, maybe we did a parent adult workshop, and I'm going to put that. How many sessions we did, I'm going to act as if this is the first quarter. So we've just done 1 session so far. Who's the main provider? I'm going to put CIS staff, but it can be a community partner or school staff if you're helping to contribute to what the school's already created or what a community partner has already created. And then you go from there. How many students were served? If we did parent engagement event, we need to have how many parents were served and how many students were served. Just to dispel something, if we're doing parent engagement, yes, the emphasis should be on the parents. But remember, tier 1s, for accreditation purposes, we have to reach 75% of the school's student population by the end of the year. So even if we're doing parent engagement, we have to find a way to engage the parents, but also reach 75% of our school's student population by the end of the year to help remove the barrier of parent engagement if you selected parent engagement. We need to put the total number of support hours, and then identify student participants. If we're identifying student participants, it's going to pop up at the bottom. And then we can put support notes, which is a summary of what we did in terms of this tier 1. And if we had case managed kids there, we can add students at the bottom. So if we had case managed students, we can put the students at the bottom. But just remember, number of students served was not entered. Sorry, let's put 30. Add students. All right, so if we were doing this, we could go through and add any students on our caseload who came to this event. But remember, any students that's on your caseload that came to these events will not count towards your 75% of the school's population, because that 75% of the school's population has to be students who are not on our caseload. So I'm gonna close this and cancel it out and make sure this didn't save. And it did save, so we need to delete it. So I'm gonna delete this batch entry and go from there. Let's try it one more time just to make sure I deleted that, because I was not supposed to save it. All right. And then we're going to do batch tier 2, batch tier 3 supports. So remember batch tier 2 and tier 3. So tier 2s are group activities for case managed students who usually should have similar issues or similar barriers that we're trying to remove or mitigate. And then tier 3s are one-to-one supports that are usually used for high level intensity kids, but we can also use it for kids who need one-to-one support. They don't have to be high risk. So if we're trying to do a batch tier 2, tier 3, which is entering in or reporting out to our case management system, a large number of kids who we provided tier 2 or tier 3 supports to. So we'll go to my caseworthy, tier 2, tier 3 supports. We'll hit add new if we haven't provided any at all, and kind of go through a similar process as to what we just went through with the tier 1 batch supports. We would fill in everything, and then we would add any students' names here. The good thing about here is we can actually do check-ins with our kids while entering in the batch tier 2, tier 3. And I'm just entering in random stuff so we can make sure we're seeing the same information. So you'd fill out everything with stars. And then we had students down at the bottom. We could add those students and say that a check-in took place, and talk about the supports provided and all those different things. So you would use the same process. So I'm going to hit cancel. Let's go to a student. All right, so we go to case management. Before we do that, let me make sure you all understand how to enroll a student. So if we wanted to enroll a student that's never been enrolled before, go to case management, go to add new/enroll student. This window, secondary window, will come up. If you were already working to add the student and then got called to the principal's office to help out with something, or was doing something else in the building, if you started a process, you can click one of these and come back to whatever process you already started. But if you didn't, you may want to exit out of those things and start a new workflow. So I would add new workflow. First question is going to ask, have you received parent guardian consent to enroll this student? The answer should be yes. Then it's going to ask you for the student's first name, last name, and then student ID. A lot of times, unless you remember to write down the student ID on the consent form that you got back from the student, it doesn't have a spot for the student ID. So you would need to get that from the school. What I would do is get a list of every student and every student ID number, maybe an attendance report or a list of kids, the attendance for the day for the school. We'll have that up there. Once you filled in all this information, you're going to check to see if there's a duplicate already in the system. A duplicate would happen if a student had the same name as another kid. If a student had the same, student ID number as a different kid, or if a kid was previously case managed by another school or site coordinator, and now we're just adding this kid back with a new consent form. So you're going to walk through this whole process. It's going to make you verify the kid, then it's going to make you verify the address and demographic information for the kid. You're going to put in the consent form date, um, when the supports begin, um, any referral information or parent emergency contact information, and then you're going to finish out the enrollment. And that's just here. All right. So after we've enrolled a kid, we can find them after we've enrolled them using two ways. We click case management and hit find student. And this will bring us to a window where we can type in the student's first name, last name, student ID, birthday, find kid. We don't have to enter all of that. You can just enter a first name and last name. You can just enter student ID or birthdays. And it'll bring up, after you hit search, it'll bring up all the options for the kids there at the bottom. And then you can find them. Another way to find kids that you've already enrolled is my caseload. So it'll show you every kid on your caseload in this kind of Excel type format. And you can go down and click the green highlighted name, and it should take you to that kid. Let's say we've already enrolled a kid and we want to see more information. So we can click this dashboard on the side and get demographic information, get parent guardian consent information, referrals, or student contact information. Let's say we want to do a needs assessment or support plan for the kid. We go to student dashboard under see more student information. We click the wrong thing. Student dashboard. So once you first enroll a kid, it'll look like this. You'll see it's pink for student needs assessment and support plan, meaning it's incomplete. And we would need to do those things to complete them. We have this box for check-in. We can add new check-in. And when we add a new check-in, we can add the total number of hours we work with this kid. And then we're going to add a case note. In this case note, it's going to come up with, did you discuss the following topics with your kid? Goals, supports, progress, personal issues. You can fill this in or you can remove it. Maybe you want to do the G.R.O.W model where you talk about reality, goals, reality, options, and obstacles, and our way forward. And then enter in exactly what you talked about. Or you can delete all this out and type whatever the heck you want to type. The case notes here don't have to be as extreme or as strenuous, but I would say if a serious incident or problem occurs in a school, I would put on my social work gloves or my police officer gloves and type out something more in depth that can cover you in the event something crazy happens. And that's your check-in. So I'm going to hit cancel. Once again, we'll go to student dashboard. You can find check-ins there. If we're dealing with a student, this particular student, and wanted to do one tier 2 or tier 3 support entry for that particular kid, we would click the tier 2, tier 3 button on that student dashboard, and then we click add new student support. Once it comes in, up, it looks similar to the batch tier 2, tier 3 information. You fill all that in, and then you can put a case note as well. So just an example really quickly. We're doing a tier 2, tier 3. We click academic assistance, academic, let's say homework and classroom assistance. When did this take place? Before school, let's say during school. Um, Tier of supports, was it a group activity? Then it'd be with other kids who have similar issues. That'd be a tier two. Was it a one-to-one intensive activity for a high-risk kid, or just a one-to-one activity with a kid who desired or needs more one-to-one care? Select whichever one it is, however many hours you supported this kid. You can also turn it into 30-minute increments, 15-minute increments with decimals, and then hit a case note, and we're good to go. Um, so let's go back to the dashboard. We got an incomplete needs assessment and support plan for this kid. So we would go to that kid and do a needs assessment. So if this kid already had a needs assessment, we can look at the needs assessment, but it looks like they haven't had one yet, so we need to launch needs assessment. Luckily, I pulled up a needs assessment and support plan form, an actual physical form up, so I wouldn't have to go in and do any kids' um, actual document. And we'll look at that really quickly. Stop sharing. I don't know why I keep stop sharing. I could have continued sharing. Let's see. All right. Okay. So this is the needs assessment form. When you actually do a needs assessment inside a system, you won't see the student demographics uh, profile part. Usually, this stuff is already in the system, so it skips straight to the student attributes, student risk factors, and student data. So the student attributes are um, things that have happened to these kids or groups that they're associated with. And you will put yes, no, or unknown. But don't utilize unknown, because every time you hit unknown, by the end of the year, we have to clean up all unknowns. So you might as well act as if the unknown doesn't exist and just put yes or no. And then if you do put no for something is really not known at the moment, then I would come back to it later and fill it in, or use this paper copy of a needs assessment to allow the students to fill this out and then come back and fill it in later. So we talked about student attributes. Now we talk about student risk factors. These are things or traits or um, things that have happened to the kid that are risk factors for them being able to be successful. So again, we want to act like unknown doesn't exist, hit no for anything that we don't know, and then come back and verify, or we want to hand out this sheet to the kids and allow them to fill it out, and then all we have to do is enter it. Student data. So this is the baseline information. So you want to get the information, the report card from last year, the attendance report from last year, the behavioral report from last year, and create a baseline for this kid based on what they dealt with last year. When we get to the support plan side of things, we're actually going to create goals for the students to reach based on last year's baseline information. But the baseline is really just the starting point of the new goal. So if we had a D last year in math, this year the baseline is the starting point. So we're starting from this kid was able to get a D and saying now I want them to move forward and push forward and go from a D to a C. So you have your baseline, which is again is the starting point of your goal, and then your target, which is the end point of where you would like to see the kid get in terms of the goal. But that's on the support plan. Let's go to the support plan real quick. All right, on the support plan, again, if we were to fill this in online in system, you're not going to see the student demographic information. It's going to start straight off with this goal. Um, yeah, with this goal. One thing I failed to mention, so let me go back to the needs assessment really quickly. After we put in the student data, we're going to put in a risk level. So we're either going to say the student is high risk or moderate risk. It doesn't give you the option for low. What I would say high risk would be any kids with big crisis or big issues or problems that prevent you from easily just working with the kid, um, or having a bunch of barriers that cause this kid to have a lot to deal with, or it becomes overwhelming to tackle all these different problems. If the kid requires a lot of supports, a lot more supports than your average kids, if the kid requires a lot of eyes being on them because they get in trouble a lot of times, kids whose time, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of supports, and a lot of energy to get them to their goal, I would consider those kids high risk. And any kids that's low risk or moderate are those kids that do not require a whole lot of time and energy in order to reach your goal. You want to look at that risk level recommendations chart that I sent you all earlier this year to give you more information about what high risk, low risk, and moderate risk is and how to best service those kids. Let's return. So the needs assessment is going to have a risk level up there that you're going to have to submit, whether a kid is high or moderate level. Now back to our support plan. Um, Again, the demographic information is only going to be on the sheet for the support plan. When you're actually in CISDM and you go to needs assessment, support plan, it's going to start you off with the data. So it's going to look at intent, attendance, academics, and behavior, and it's going to ask you to fill in the baseline information, but that should already be there if you did that in the needs assessment information. Now you're going to create a target. So baseline is the starting point of the goal. The target is where you hope the goal to end up at, or where you want them to reach their goal. The frequency of monitoring is how often are we going to check on this goal, and then a goal narrative lets us know what our plan for that goal was. And you're going to do that for both for all the ABC level goals. And then they also give you access to some goals that are not necessarily ABC goals. And then once you complete that, it's going to ask you about some goals for basic needs and how you plan to support that. Sorry, let me take that back. At the end of the support plan, it's going to ask you for the plan supports for each kid and the frequency that you're going to provide it and what tiers it's going to address. So let's say a kid had academic issues. I would put academic assistance and then maybe tutoring as the support provided. I'm going to say that I'm monitoring this kid on a monthly basis, and then it affects all three tiers. So you're going to do that for the student, for each student who you put on the caseload. Stop sharing. All right, so we went over CISDM stuff. Now let's go over some supervisor stuff. All right, so here is my first quarter audit. And what I did was I sent you all a first quarter monthly checklist at the beginning of the year. And this checklist pretty much shows you everything that you should do by the end of the quarter. So, did you meet and build rapport with staff, students, and partners? Did you create your weekly schedule and tentative events calendar for your school supports and to show schools what you do on a daily basis during your weekly schedule? Did you create a needs assessment and support plan and enter it in CISDM? Did your support plan get signed and returned to me? Did you review your support plan with your admin and support team? Did you meet with, vet, and plan with community partners? Did you complete monthly reports for all months in the first quarter? Did you execute your first Tier 1 event? Did you review the effectiveness of your Tier 1 event with a check-in with your support team, admin, parents, students? Did you monitor and adjust if the Tier 1 was not as effective as it could have been, or if you're not getting the desired results? from the school's data? Did you create and update the school digital case file? Did you complete site coordinator meetings with admin, support team, and affiliate? And did you evaluate your execution of the model? So it's going to prioritize how high that area is of concern or of importance. And then I'm going to put whether or not it got started, whether or not it's in progress, whether it was incomplete or completed, whatever the date and time is of that, and add any attachments that I want to add to that. In addition to that, I'm going to do the same thing. So that one's for the school. This one's for your actual caseload. And then this is for your student's case file. So I'm going to put their name here, put what their risk level is, say whether or not they have the active consent case file completed, their needs assessment and support plan completed, your check-in and tier 3 completed, your goal alignment, your progress monitoring, and are you on track for the year? All right. In addition to that, if you all are having any problems or issues as it relates to principals, I want you all to utilize this principal guide, which has your PD's phone numbers and what cities they um, deal with. It goes over the history, it shows the unique model, and it shows the process um, of how that model is implemented, shows how you unpack the model, shows how we deliver tiered supports, shows how we do our caseload and how our caseload should work, shows how we collect data, and it kind of just gives them an idea of what they're supposed to do and tells them how they should be seeing it ran, and then also gives them some guidelines for them to help and be supportive in your running of this support system or this model. All right, and then we're going to start sharing that. And let's see if we find an example. Let's see. All right, so let's look at an example of a case file. So in our digital case files, we want to have school files. And in those school files, we should have our needs assessment, our support plan, and our VDOE school quality report information. So the support plan and the needs assessment show, if your supervisor is looking at it, needs assessment shows me that you went through this process to identify the prioritized needs of the school. The support plan shows me that you have a plan that you plan to implement, community partners, and other things in there. The VDOE school quality report shows me that you actually looked at the data to see what the data is saying from last year related to the school. And then we'd also have those needs assessment surveys in here, but I hadn't gotten around to grabbing it and throwing it in here yet. But once we have all this information, we're good on school information until we get to our quarterly reports that show us how close we are to meeting our goal or if we're meeting our goal or not. In terms of individual student, we have an individual student example here where they have baseline information from the year before related to a student. And then they have 2024 information. So you got your support plan for the student that shows what goals you created for this kid and when you want to see them monitored by. You have what looks like report card quarter 2 data, report card quarter 4 data, report card quarter 3 data, report card quarter 4 data. So throughout the year, it looks like we're tracking some kind of academics goals, and we provided report cards to show proof of those academic goals. Then we got baseline and consent information here. So we got baseline for behavior, baseline for attendance, baseline for report card data, and then we have the consent form. And the reason why this is necessary is the consent form lets us know they got permission We should have the support plan in here to see what goal we created for the kid, utilizing the ABC baseline to pick which biggest barrier the kid was facing. So all those things are there. And that's just an idea of how I plan to audit and what would be in there and all of that. So we're going to stop sharing that. And let's see if there's anything else that I need to talk about. Went over the case file examples. I did stress to you all that you should not be adding any more kids to your caseload until you've created case files for each one of your kids. And yes, I know it's not going to have the quarterly reports in there yet, but I want to be able to check behind you to see that for each kid, you have an active consent form, you have a plan for how you want to address their biggest barriers, and then you have baseline information that shows that you looked at attendance, behavior, and course performance and decided on which one was the biggest barrier, and you started providing supports to those kids. So that at the end of the quarter, we can get quarterly reports to place in the file to show that we actually did our due diligence to get the uh, student data and see where they are in terms of meeting their goals. And I think that is it. One last thing I wanted to show you all. Okay, maybe I don't have it up. But there's a sheet called, oh, no, I do know where that is. What a site coordinator can and can't do. So on this particular form, it just outlines to you what you can and can't do. So what can't a site coordinator do? You can't be a security guard or an SRO person. The reason we can't do that is it creates contractual liabilities if any of you were to get hurt trying to break up a fight or do anything similar to that. We can't be a substitute teacher, teacher aide, or teacher assistant. You have to have appropriate um, degree for that. And we don't want to misuse you because you're a support to teachers, students, admin, and staff, and not actually the teacher. And so on and so forth as you come down there. Um, what a site coordinator may do looks at what looks at the fact that what you can't do is not your job, but finds ways for you to do what they're asking without actually having to do a job or role that's not your role. And then what a site coordinator can do offers a alternative way for the school to get what it wants out of you without crossing the line on what you need to do and what you should be doing. And that concludes our coaching session. If you have any questions or concerns, you can definitely hit me up. I'll be adding this to YouTube later on tonight and breaking it down to make sure that there are um, breaks so you can skip around to the parts that you really need. Feel free while I'm out of town to reach out to me, contact me, check in with me, ask me any questions and anything like that. Thank you so much. I'm really proud of you. I appreciate all the great work that you all do. I'll talk to you later.